Well, first of all, the climate crisis impacts children more than anybody. They're the ones that are in the front lines of these communities.
The climate crisis is reshaping the lives of children. It threatens their future with illness, disease, and even death. Efforts to preserve a livable planet must not only address the specific needs and vulnerabilities of young people, but also actively involve them in crafting these solutions. Children and youth possess critical skills, experiences, and ideas for building safer, more sustainable societies. They aren't just inheriting the consequences of our inaction, they're facing them head on today. UNICEF USA is a non-profit, non-governmental organization in the United States that supports the United Nations Children's Fund. UNICEF works in over 190 countries and territories to ensure that every child is healthy, educated, protected, and respected. UNICEF USA, based in New York City, works relentlessly in support of that mission, helping to drive global impact for children. We had the chance to sit down with the CEO of UNICEF USA, Michael Nyenhuis, at the Concordia Annual Summit in New York City. Throughout our conversation, we dive into the critical role youth play in driving climate action. UNICEF has been empowering young people to not only raise their voices, but to take tangible action through initiatives like their Green Rising campaign, which aims to mobilize 10 million youth globally by 2025. From advocating for climate change solutions to volunteering and contributing to the green economy, these young leaders are on the front lines of climate adaptation and community protection. We also explore UNICEF's commitment to green skilling, where hands-on learning equips youth with the tools they need to thrive in the green economy. Ultimately, this conversation highlights why young people are the key drivers of climate progress and how they are shaping a greener, more resilient world. Well, welcome back to the Green Hour. We are here live at the Concordia Annual Summit during Climate Week in New York City. Sitting here with me is Michael Nyenhuis, CEO of UNICEF US. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
So I think that the whole conversation we're going to talk about today is all revolving around youth for climate action. And if we look at SDG number 13, it's to take urgent action to combat climate change and its impacts. First off, I'd just like to ask you, what role do youth play in climate action?
I think there's a whole variety of roles that they play. I think historically what we've talked most about is about making sure that we hear youth voice on this issue. Youth are concerned about it. We've done surveys of youth. We can talk about that a little bit later, that this is one of the issues that they are most concerned about. And so we want to hear about them. So UNICEF has done a great job creating space at the UN. We've done a great job creating space in Washington, in critical forums like this here at Concordia, to make sure that we're hearing from youth. But I think what's even more exciting today for me than just hearing from youth is seeing what they're actually doing, like putting not just their voice, but their hands and their feet to this issue. And we've done some really, really interesting work to empower and motivate youth and to take action on environmental and climate issues in their own communities. And then modeling those so that other youth know that they can actually make a difference.
Youth are the drivers of change, right? And as youth grow up, they're going to be the leaders, the next leaders in this world. So education starts with youth. And if you can get climate educated youth from the beginning, it's a huge thing. It's a very big thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think this is one topic where we don't need to push too much because the youth are actually pushing us. I was at another event in Washington a couple of weeks ago, and on just a panel with a youth leader, and I asked her, it's like, what do you need from our generation, my generation, to get more involved? And she said, we need opportunity. We need spaces open. We're ready to come. We're ready to act. Don't close them on us.
Right.
Continue to open them. And I think that was a really good challenge.
So how does UNICEF give youth a voice, right, in the issues that are happening today? I mean, this is a climate podcast, so we talk a lot about climate, but how does UNICEF give a voice to youth when they want to act.
Yeah. And we don't need, of course, we don't need to give them the voice. They have the voice.
Right.
So are we creating the space where that can be heard? And again, I think we've done that pretty successfully. There's not a climate event anywhere now that doesn't have strong youth participation and a prominent role for a youth speaker so that we hear them. And again, I don't think that's really the issue now. The issue is there space for them to take action? Do they know what to do and how to do it? We did a survey of youth in a number of countries about their views on climate change. We found a few things. One, that they have a lot of anxiety about it. There's a lot of deep concern about what it means for their future, the future of the planet. Number two, that they want to do something. They're motivated to do something. And number three, there were too many of them that didn't know what to do. And so this is why, again, this idea of modeling what youth are doing, I think, is critical. And one of the really interesting initiatives that UNICEF is doing, we call the Green Rising. And this is an effort to empower, equip, and then hold up as models action that youth are actually taking. So two examples, we have a group in Mongolia of youth that have come up with a way to monitor air pollution in their community and to issue alerts to families and to other youth about when the air is too dangerous to be out, and then becoming advocates for better air quality in their community. We have a group of youth in Burundi that have developed a social enterprise around building cleaner cooking stoves, and then advocating for them among the families in their communities, and actually making sure that they're available to them. So these are like concrete actions. Again, not just their voice, but their hands and their feet. And I think the more we see that kind of inspiring work, our generation will be inspired to create that space, and more youth will say, hey, I can do something too.
When looking at this, Green Rising initiative, I think you launched it last year, right? And maybe during this week. It might have been during this week last year when you launched it. But, that plan was to mobilize, like you said, 10 million young people to take concrete climate actions in their communities and countries by 2025. We're sitting here in 2024. So, I mean, that's 1 year out. So I would ask, what's the progress on this initiative? And where are we at today?
I think and I'm not sure where we are against those numbers and where we will be next year, whether we'll reach that goal or accelerate that or exceed that goal. But I do think that there's more out there than we know.
Right.
So some of it is just literally uncovering really interesting work that young people are doing now and getting it into this funnel, into this count that's there. And then again, using that to inspire other young people. Again, what we found in the survey that we did is no reluctance on the part of youth to actually jump in and take action, but a lack of knowledge or understanding of what they could do. So when they see other youth doing really interesting, doable, tangible things, I think you'll see just a whole rising of youth around this.
Yeah. So peer-to-peer is huge. I mean, we were talking yesterday, I'm trying to remember what conversation it was, the CSO of JBS Food. He was talking about how, in their supply chain, they're basically global all over the world. And, when they're going and training farmers, they're not going in, they're getting people in the communities to actually train peer-to-peer, farmer to farmer, because that's how you really create change. But to your point on peer-to-peer, I mean, the note that I have down is your Voices of Youth platform and how you've created this so youth can talk to each other and find solutions together. Could you talk a little bit about that platform and just what it means?
Yeah. So we have a technology platform called YouReport, and we use this in a number of countries all over the world to really to capture youth voice and to amplify youth voice. So on critical issues that they find important, they're using this tool to connect to one another, to inform us about what they see as the priorities in their communities, to do advocacy on a broader scale than that. And it's, youth love and connect by social media. And this is a tool within that bucket of tools that they can use to do that, but really aimed at dynamic social change that they can be a part of.
Right. Yeah, I mean, all these initiatives, they're empowering young people to be advocates of climate action. And to your point, it's not all just talking about it and having a voice about it, it's actually acting on it. So I would ask you, what else is UNICEF doing to provide these opportunities for youth? I mean, we talked about this platform, we talked about, Green Rising, but what else is UNICEF doing, to give them the platform?
Yeah. So, we do a lot of work in education. We describe UNICEF's work and every child healthy, educated, protected, and respected. And the educated piece has lots of components to it. But one of them over the last couple of years that we're really growing is what we're calling green skilling. So this is an effort to make youth aware in their education process of the careers and of the jobs that are available in the green economy that they might reach for. So some of it is an awareness that these sorts of jobs exist for them. That if they're thinking about secondary school, they're thinking about university, they're thinking about training. That these are options for them, are jobs within the green economy. And again, this is another step toward not just talking about the crisis and expressing their anxiety about it, but doing something. Green Rising is about them doing projects around. The green skilling is around, like, I may want a career in that green economy, and how do I get that?
Right. I grew up in North Georgia. Chatsworth, Georgia is the name of the town, but very impoverished area. And I think my school is 90% of the population, about 1,000 students, was on free lunch, basically. And we had a program, I think, across the state of Georgia called the CTAE program, where you're basically learning skills, like you're saying, going through high school, so that you can take that after you graduate and you can actually use it in work. So, what I was pushing for and what I've been pushing for is, let's put some kind of climate action pathway, is what we call them. So, kids in the schools can learn about solar installations, or learn about, microgrids, or learn about vertical farming, whatever it is, so that they can actually take it. But it sounds like UNICEF is doing the same thing with education and awareness.
This is the green skill. There's a whole idea behind this green skilling is awareness, right? Young people aren't going to pursue careers if they don't know that they actually exist, right? And so that's what you're talking about in your community. We have UNICEF clubs at high schools and colleges across the country. And there's 700-800 clubs and something like 20,000 youth that are involved in all of them. And in those clubs at a high school campus or at a university campus, they talk a lot about climate change. And this is one of the places where we expose them to things like the Green Rising, like green skilling, so that they can be aware as they're talking about these issues on their campus level, that there are options for them to take action.
I know before we started, we were talking about one of the really cool things UNICEF is doing is really giving a platform for women, right? Women in climate action. And I'll just ask you, could you talk a little bit about y'all's message and how you conduct giving and providing women an opportunity in this movement?
Yeah. So, well, first of all, the climate crisis impacts children more than anybody. They're the ones that are in the front lines of these communities. I saw this last year when I was in northern Kenya, in an area racked by the drought, and so many children and families displaced from their villages because all of their animals had died because of the drought, and nothing's growing, and they're migrating into different places, and those kids are out of school. And they're at threat to lots of things, and the threats to girls are even greater. Just because it's an unsafe environment when children are on the move like that. So we really believe that children are at the heart of the crisis, and girls in particular there. So if they are at the heart of the crisis, then it's critical that girls and women have an opportunity to be part of the solution as well. So we do a lot of programs within that education that are focused on access for girls. I was in Bolivia recently and saw a STEM education program specifically meant to include girls from very low resource schools and communities in La Paz, Bolivia, to get them access to STEM education, understanding of, again, opportunities for them that exist that they would never have before. So we have a lot of programs like that are looking at inclusion of girls in these kinds of programs that they might normally be excluded from.
Yeah, sometimes it's as easy as just providing the opportunity that, hey, this is something that you can do, right? In STEM, I know there's certain pathways in STEM education that are pretty disproportionately dominated by males, I would say. And sometimes it's just, hey, let's kind of flip the narrative, flip the script almost, and provide women everything that they need. And it doesn't have to be a male-dominated field, whatever we're talking about in STEM, but women can do it as well.
Yeah, and for instance, in that Bolivia program, one of the groups we met was a group of girls, kind of high school age girls, who were part of a robotics program in the STEM education, and they were developing a robot that they were taking then to an international competition. Wow. So these are girls from very poor areas in the capital city area of Bolivia who are getting access to STEM education, who are developing a robot, and they took it to an international competition and took third place there. So again, opportunity, girls can do whatever they want if they're given the opportunity to pursue some of these things.
Right. I think the last segment I want to talk about, right now, so I guess I'm considered a youth. I'm 24, and I think the range is like 16 to 24,
yeah, we'll
right?
give you that.
Right? So barely on the cusp. But, a lot of people my age and younger have climate anxiety, right? Because we see what's happening. We see rising temperatures. We see rising carbon dioxide, all these things. And, we want to be optimistic, but sometimes it's hard. So I would ask you, I read an article that you wrote called Eco-Anxiety to Eco-Optimism. What would you say to the youth, and even younger than that 16 to 24 age range, how we can be optimistic when all sorts of things are just happening in the world?
Yeah. Well, I think, it's difficult to overcome anxiety if you sit back and feel helpless. In fact, I would say helplessness is probably one of the critical ingredients to anxiety. It's bad. Things are difficult. There's nothing I can do. You feel anxious about it. That's why, the things that young people are doing to actually make a difference, if more people are taking action, not just talking about it, not just stewing about it, not just feeling anxious about it, but actually taking action, then you feel like you have some control and that you're doing something. So your podcast, for instance, is an example of that.
Right.
This is sort of part of the Green Rising is what you're doing and sharing all this information around this. So I think the way to overcome the anxiety, and we found this in the survey that we did, turning eco-anxiety to eco-optimism was really about, hey, there's something I can do. There's actually a pathway to get something done here, and I can be a part of it. That's why, it's green skilling, green rising, all these efforts to give youth not just a platform, but the tools to be able to do something is really what we want to do.
To your point, for me, working in sustainability, right, or even with this podcast, it's like, it brings me passion to know that I'm actually creating change in the world, right? I'm working in an industry where we can combat a huge problem that's happening. And I think that a lot of people that are in this movement are just passionate. We want to find change. We want to find a solution. And we just kind of get together and we just want to create action.
Yeah. When you, if you saw the little video, read the little story about these kids in Mongolia that I mentioned, who've come up with this way to measure air pollution in their community and do alerts and then advocate for better. You sit back and you go like, okay, the world can be better. Right. The world can be better. We have more young people like that. The world is going to be a better place.
Right. Well, Michael, we can't thank you enough for coming on and taking time with youth and taking time with us. And thank you so much.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.